we're also going to do a new kind of workshop. I'm going to look at my other paper, and this new workshop is a workshop for small business owners, and we are planning a 2-day workshop for them, especially. And yeah, what do you want to say?
Well, before we go there, there's one thing I would like to add to constellation work, and that there's a way in which my work, I think, differs from what others do, and it has two things. It involves two things. One is that along the way, when very early in my training with Hellinger and those I've trained with, Hellinger made the statement of let the work be the teacher. And when he said that, I stopped reading any books on constellations, and I stopped listening to other constellation facilitators. And I continued working with constellations. But there's something that I did that's kind of in an ancillary way, is that I started studying some mystical traditions. One is the Andean path of the Caro Indians of the Peruvian Andes. And I worked with, and still work with, some Toltec based mystical traditions. And then I worked with a neuroscientist who had this phenomenal capacity to see into non-ordinary realities. And yet, and even today, I continue working with a former NASA engineer who also has a phenomenal ability to read and see energy and work with non-ordinary realities. And I still study with that guy. And the long and short of it is, even though I let the field teach me about constellation phenomenon, my capacity to see really was developed and grew so that I could work in these non-ordinary realities and often see very much more than other facilitators. And there are times when facilitators use the constellation technology, but they do it more in a psychological way, more like the psychodrama days that, or the constellation kind of work that Virginia Satir did. Both really great processes and useful, but just they're different rather than energetic and working in the non-ordinary. The last distinction that marks me out differently in the process of working with the mystical people, what I've seen is, instead of working simply with ancestral and family issues, I see that there's an energetic system or a community of the self, that each of us has our psychological and imaginal components, but we also have a body. But in addition, there's a whole community of non-ordinary aspects and parts of us that exist in lots of the non-ordinary realities. And I found that when I make changes there in the person, oftentimes that shortcuts the need to work with ancestral or familial issues, or we can do those very briefly and then further to make changes in a person. Am I saying this in any way that's coherent or clear?
For me, it is quite clear. My handicap is, of course, that I know you and I've worked before with you, so it makes it easier to follow what you say and to understand. I think the term non-ordinary reality could be translated, maybe you can say, if I'm right, in what I sometimes call the invisible world. There's the
Perfect.
world that is visible to our senses, and there's also an invisible world that is also that can also be sensed and known, but not with our senses, not with the normal eyes and ears and touch, but we still know and we still feel. And of course that's also connected to ways of perceiving that have developed in your mystical work with the traditions. And that's also the way we know each other, because I was working in that too, and so I understand. And I hope the viewers will follow, will understand what we are saying now. If not, they can always get in touch and ask more. But I think it is quite clear what you mean. So,
Thank you for that. Your words, invisible world, is very clarifying, and I like it even better than the words I used. So thank you.
Well, thank you.